Have you ever been so hungry you felt like you could eat a horse? Or maybe so tired after a long day that you'd trade anything for just a moment of rest? Well, today we're rediving into a story about a decision made in a moment of extreme hunger and exhaustion, decision that changed the course of history for an entire nation. This is the tale of two brothers, Jacob and Esau, and a bowl of stew that cost a birthright. Our story begins with Isaac and Rebekah, who had been hoping for children for a long time. Finally, their prayers were answered, and Rebekah became pregnant with twins. But this was no ordinary pregnancy. She could feel the babies struggling against each other inside her, a sign of the conflict that would define their lives. God told her that two nations were in her womb, and that the older would serve the younger. When the time came, the first twin was born, red and covered in hair, so they named him Esau, which means hairy. Right after him, his brother came out, grasping Esau's heel. They named him Jacob, which means he who grasps the heel, a name that hinted at his future actions. As the boys grew up, their differences became even more obvious. Esau became a skilled hunter, a man of the open country, rugged and impulsive. He was his father Isaac's favorite, because Isaac loved the taste of wild game. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet man, preferring to stay at home among the tents. He was his mother, Rebekah's favorite. This parental favoritism created a subtle tension in the family, a quiet rivalry brewing between the two brothers. One day, this rivalry came to a head. Esau came in from the open country, completely exhausted and famished from a long, unsuccessful hunt. The dust of the field clung to him, and his stomach was rumbling. As he approached the family camp, he smelled something absolutely delicious. It was Jacob, who had been cooking a fragrant, hearty red lentil stew. "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm starving," Esau pleaded, his eyes fixed on the steaming pot. He was so focused on his immediate hunger that he didn't even call the stew by its name, just that red stuff. Now, Jacob saw an opportunity. He was a planner, always thinking a few steps ahead. He looked at his desperate, older brother and made a proposal that seemed outrageous. "First," Jacob said calmly, "sell me your birthright." What was this birthright? In their culture, it was incredibly valuable. The firstborn son was entitled to a double portion of the family's inheritance. But more than that, it meant he would become the new head of the family, the leader of the clan, and the one to carry on the spiritual blessings promised by God to their grandfather, Abraham. It was a position of honor, responsibility, and immense privilege. It was Esau's entire future. Esau, in his state of physical exhaustion, couldn't see past his immediate need. "Look, I am about to die," he exclaimed dramatically. "What good is the birthright to me?" He was completely consumed by the present moment. The future seemed distant and unimportant compared to the gnawing hunger in his belly. For Esau, the tangible, immediate satisfaction of a meal outweighed the abstract, future promise of his birthright. So, Jacob pressed his advantage. "Swear to me first," he insisted. He wanted to make the deal official, binding, and Esau, without a second thought, swore an oath. He sold his birthright to his younger brother. Once the oath was sworn, Jacob gave Esau what he wanted. He handed him some bread and the bowl of lentil stew. Esau ate and drank, satisfying his hunger. And then he just got up and left. The Bible tells us, so Esau despised his birthright. He didn't just sell it. He looked down on it, treated it as worthless. He traded a long-term, priceless inheritance for a short-term, temporary comfort. This single event set in motion a chain of consequences that would ripple through generations. Jacob, through his cunning, had secured the legal claim to the firstborn's blessing. But this was just the beginning of the drama. Later, with his mother's help, Jacob would also trick his aging, blind father Isaac into giving him the patriarchal blessing that was meant for Esau. When Esau finally realized the full extent of what he had lost, not just the property, but the spiritual leadership and blessing, he was filled with regret and a bitter rage. He cried out with a loud and bitter cry and begged his father for a blessing, any blessing. But it was too late. The primary blessing had been given to Jacob. This betrayal fueled a deep hatred in Esau's heart, and he plotted to kill Jacob after their father died. To escape his brother's wrath, Jacob had to flee for his life, beginning a long and difficult journey that would ultimately shape him into the man God intended him to be. He spent 20 years in a foreign land, where he himself was tricked by his uncle Laban, marrying the wrong sister and working for years to earn his beloved Rachel. It seems what goes around comes around. Jacob, the trickster, got a taste of his own medicine. These years of hardship humbled him and taught him to rely on God rather than his own cleverness. Eventually, the two brothers would meet again. Jacob, fearing for his life, wrestled with an angel of God all night and was given a new name, Israel, meaning he who struggles with God. This encounter changed him forever. When he finally met Esau, it wasn't a violent confrontation. Instead, in a powerful moment of grace, Esau ran to Jacob, embraced him, and they wept. They reconciled. So what can we learn from this ancient story? It's a powerful lesson about the choices we make. Esau's story is a classic warning against prioritizing short-term gratification over long-term value. How often do we trade something of lasting importance, our health, our relationships, our integrity for a moment of pleasure or convenience? We live in a world of instant gratification where everything is just a click away. It's so easy to fall into the trap of I want it now, just like Esau. On the other hand, Jacob's story is complex. He was deceitful and opportunistic. Yet he was the one who valued the blessing. He desired the spiritual inheritance so much that he was willing to fight for it, even if his methods were questionable. Throughout his life, God worked to sand down his rough edges, transforming him from a deceiver into a patriarch. This story reminds us to think about what we truly value. Are we focused on the bowl of stew right in front of us, the temporary, the fleeting, the material? Or are we, like Jacob, striving for something more, for the blessings that have eternal significance? It challenges us to look beyond our immediate desires and make choices that honor our future selves and the legacy we want to leave behind. It's a timeless narrative about family dysfunction, sibling rivalry, and the consequences of our actions. But above all, it's a story of how God can work through flawed, messy people and their questionable choices to accomplish his ultimate purposes. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the story of Jacob and Esau. If you found this interesting, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from history and scripture that still have so much to teach us today. Let me know in the comments what you think. Who do you relate to more, Jacob or Esau? I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.